Have you ever noticed how birds suddenly veer away from certain places? How they refuse to land in specific areas, as if an invisible force repels them? Ancient texts suggest Jesus taught his disciples about this phenomenon, explaining that birds can sense what he called frequency drops around entities known as Archons. Before we dive deep into this fascinating teaching, make sure you hit that subscribe button because this channel explores hidden wisdom that mainstream sources won't touch. Let's get into it. Jesus understood nature in ways that went far beyond what most people comprehend. When he spoke to his closest followers, he didn't just teach parables about farmers and seeds. He revealed the hidden mechanics of reality itself. One of the most intriguing teachings involved the sensitivity of birds to spiritual frequencies. He explained that every living creature operates on a specific vibrational level, but birds possess something unique. Their entire bodies function as frequency detectors, constantly reading the energetic signatures of their surroundings. The Archons, according to these hidden teachings, are entities that exist in a realm just adjacent to our physical reality. They're not quite in our dimension, but not entirely outside it either. Think of them as beings that straddle the boundary between the seen and unseen worlds. Jesus described them as parasitic forces that feed on low vibrational energy, particularly fear, anxiety, and spiritual confusion. Wherever these entities concentrate their presence, they create what he called a frequency drop, a localized zone where the natural vibration of life itself decreases dramatically. Birds experience this drop in a way humans typically can't. While we might feel uncomfortable in certain places or around certain people without knowing why, birds receive this information much more directly. Their nervous systems are wired differently. Every feather on their body acts as an antenna, picking up electromagnetic and energetic signals that we remain blind to. Jesus taught that when a bird approaches an area where Archons have gathered or where their influence is strong, the bird's entire system goes into alert mode. Imagine flying through the air and suddenly hitting a pocket of energy that feels like resistance, like flying through invisible mud. That's what birds experience near Archonic presence. The frequency drop manifests as a tangible barrier to them. Their instincts immediately recognize this as danger, not physical danger necessarily, but a threat to their life force itself. So they bank away, they change direction, they refuse to land. This isn't random. It's a survival mechanism built into their very nature. Jesus pointed out specific examples to his disciples. He told them to watch the birds around the temples where corrupt priests performed empty rituals. The birds would circle but never land on certain sections of these buildings. He explained this happened because the rituals performed without genuine devotion, done purely for power or money, created openings for Archonic influence. The frequency in those spaces dropped below what nature could tolerate. The birds knew, even if the people inside didn't. Now let's talk about what creates these frequency drops. According to this teaching, Archons cannot generate their own energy. They exist as parasites, requiring a host consciousness to feed from. When humans engage in sustained patterns of negative thought, when communities become trapped in cycles of fear and control, when institutions prioritize power over truth, these situations create the perfect feeding ground. The Archons move in, and wherever they concentrate, the frequency drops. Think about places in your own life where birds seem absent, not because of physical reasons like pollution or noise, but places that just feel off. Maybe it's a particular building or a section of town. Maybe it's around certain individuals. Jesus taught that this wasn't coincidence. The natural world responds to energetic realities that our modern minds have forgotten how to perceive. Birds are still connected to this ancient knowing. The disciples asked Jesus why humans couldn't sense these drops as clearly as birds could. He explained that humans once possessed this ability but lost it through what he called the descent into dense matter. As humanity became more focused on the physical world, more caught up in material concerns and mental constructs, the natural sensitivity dulled. The constant mental noise in human consciousness acts like static, drowning out the subtle signals that birds receive clearly. But here's the empowering part of the teaching. Jesus didn't present this as a permanent condition. He taught specific practices to restore this sensitivity. The first step involved learning to quiet the mind, not through force but through observation. When you stop identifying with every thought that passes through your awareness, when you create space between the noise, you begin to notice things you missed before. You start feeling the subtle shifts in energy that happen in different locations and around different people. He also taught about the importance of spending time with birds themselves, not just watching them from a distance, but truly observing their behavior with full presence. Notice where they gather and where they avoid. Notice how they react to different people. Birds will land near someone radiating genuine peace but keep their distance from someone harboring dark intentions, even if that person appears outwardly friendly. The birds know the truth beneath the surface. Jesus explained that raising your own frequency provides protection from Archonic influence. When you maintain a high vibration through practices like genuine prayer, time in nature, creative expression, and acts of sincere compassion, you become like a light that these entities cannot approach. They exist in low frequency ranges, and high vibration literally repels them. This is why he constantly emphasized love, joy, and inner peace. These aren't just nice feelings, they're protective frequencies. The teaching gets even more specific. Jesus described different types of frequency drops associated with different archonic specializations. Some archons feed primarily on fear and create a heavy, oppressive feeling in spaces they inhabit. Birds will avoid these areas entirely, as if the space doesn't exist. Other archons feed on confusion and create zones of mental fog where thoughts become scattered. Birds in these areas fly erratically, unable to navigate properly, so they quickly leave. Then there are archons that feed on pride and superiority. These create a different kind of drop, one that feels cold and isolating. Jesus pointed out how birds avoid landing near individuals consumed by arrogance, even if those individuals try to feed them. The birds sense the frequency distortion and won't accept food from that source. They'd rather go hungry than absorb the tainted energy that surrounds such offerings. Understanding this teaching provides practical wisdom for modern life. When you're choosing where to live, pay attention to the birds. If an area has abundant bird life, if they sing freely and move with ease, that's a sign of healthy frequency. If birds are strangely absent despite having trees and resources, if the few birds you see appear agitated or quickly leave, consider that information seriously. Something in that environment is creating a frequency drop. The same applies to relationships and social situations. Jesus taught his disciples to observe how animals, particularly birds, react around people they're considering as teachers or leaders. If birds flee from someone claiming spiritual authority, that's significant information. The natural world cannot be fooled by pretense. Birds read the energetic truth, not the social mask. A genuinely elevated being attracts the natural world. A fraud repels it. Now we need to address something important. This teaching isn't about fear. Jesus wasn't telling people to become paranoid about archons lurking everywhere. Instead, he was providing information for discernment and empowerment. When you understand how these entities operate, when you recognize the signs of their influence, you can make conscious choices to maintain your own frequency and avoid feeding their systems. The industrial world creates frequency drops through mechanisms that didn't exist in Jesus' time but operate on the same principles he described. Constant exposure to fear-based media, participation in systems built on exploitation, spending hours in artificial environments disconnected from nature, these modern patterns create the exact conditions where archonic influence thrives. And notice, birds increasingly disappear from heavily urbanized areas, not just because of physical habitat loss, but because of the frequency pollution. Jesus taught that reclaiming your sensitivity to frequency is part of spiritual awakening. As you develop this ability, you'll notice you naturally start making different choices. You'll feel drawn to certain places and repelled by others in ways you can't fully explain logically. You'll meet someone and immediately feel either warmth or a subtle warning, independent of how they present themselves socially. Trust these feelings. They're your own system starting to read frequency again. There's a practice Jesus shared for developing this sensitivity. Find a place where birds gather peacefully, maybe a park or garden. Sit quietly and simply be present without agenda. Don't try to feed the birds or interact with them. Just observe and feel. Notice the quality of energy in that space. Let your system recalibrate to what healthy frequency feels like. Then when you enter other environments, you'll have a reference point. You'll notice when the frequency feels different when it drops. He also taught about the voice of inner knowing. Every human has an internal guidance system that operates below the level of thought. It communicates through feelings, through subtle body sensations, through what some call intuition. This system is actually reading frequency constantly, but most people have learned to override it with mental reasoning. Jesus encouraged his followers to honor those first impressions, those gut feelings, because they're often picking up on frequency information that the conscious mind hasn't processed. The relationship between birds and archonic presence reveals something profound about the structure of reality. We live in a responsive universe where everything connects through vibration. Nothing exists in isolation. The spiritual affects the physical, and the physical reflects the spiritual. Birds refusing to land in certain areas isn't a superstitious observation. It's a measurable response to actual energetic conditions, even if our current scientific instruments can't detect these frequencies yet. This teaching also addresses why sacred spaces feel different. When genuine spiritual practice occurs in a location, when people gather there with pure intention and open hearts, the frequency rises. Birds naturally gather in these places. You'll find them singing at temples where real devotion occurs, at sites in nature where the veil between worlds is thin, around individuals who have done the inner work to maintain high vibration. The birds are drawn to these frequencies like they're drawn to sunlight. Jesus made it clear that every individual has the power to raise or lower the frequency of their immediate environment. Your thoughts, emotions, and intentions don't just stay inside your head. They radiate outward, affecting the energetic quality of the space around you. When you hold sustained patterns of resentment, fear, or hatred, you create a localized frequency drop. Animals sense this and keep their distance. When you cultivate peace, gratitude, and genuine love, you raise the frequency and become a refuge for life. The teaching extends to understanding why certain historical locations feel heavy or oppressive. Battlefields where immense fear and suffering occurred often have strange bird behavior. Birds may fly over these areas but rarely land, even centuries after the events. The frequency drop imprinted into the land itself persists. Similarly, places where wisdom was honored, where healing occurred, where people lived in harmony, these places often teem with bird life even now. In the modern context, we can observe this in real time. Notice the birds around hospitals, particularly around different sections. Some areas they avoid, others they frequent. Same with schools, government buildings, corporate offices. The birds are giving us constant feedback about the energetic quality of these spaces, but we've stopped paying attention. Relearning this language of nature provides access to information that can guide better choices. Jesus warned against spaces where humans try to appear spiritual while harboring corrupt intentions. He said these create the strongest frequency drops because they involve active deception. When someone uses spiritual language to manipulate others, when rituals become theater for ego, when sacred teachings get twisted for control, the resulting frequency distortion is severe. Birds will not go near such places. If you visit somewhere claiming to be a spiritual center but notice a strange absence of bird life, consider that a red flag worth investigating. The teaching provides hope because it's ultimately about freedom. By understanding these dynamics, you're no longer a passive victim of unseen forces. You can actively choose to maintain high frequency through your daily practices and choices. You can learn to read the signs that nature constantly provides. You can recognize archonic influence early and remove yourself from those situations before they drain your energy. Birds serve as guardians and messengers in this understanding. They're not consciously trying to teach us, but their natural responses reveal truths we need to know. When we reestablish our connection with the natural world, when we start paying attention to animal behavior again, we plug back into an ancient intelligence that predates human civilization. This intelligence operates on principles that remain constant regardless of cultural changes or technological advancement. Jesus taught this not as abstract philosophy but as practical survival knowledge. The disciples lived in a world of political corruption, religious hypocrisy, and social manipulation, not that different from today. Knowing how to read frequency, how to spot archonic influence, how to maintain personal vibration despite external chaos, these skills meant the difference between staying free or becoming enslaved to systems of control. The reason this teaching remained hidden for so long relates to exactly what it reveals. Systems built on low-frequency patterns, on keeping populations in fear and confusion, don't want people understanding these mechanics. If enough individuals learn to read frequency, to recognize manipulation, to consciously choose high vibration regardless of circumstances, those systems lose their power. The birds have been showing us the truth all along. We just forgot how to understand their language. As you move forward with this knowledge, start simple. Watch the birds in your daily environment. Notice patterns you hadn't seen before. Trust the feelings you get in different spaces and around different people. Practice raising your own frequency through whatever methods resonate with you, whether that's meditation, time in nature, creative expression, or acts of service. As you do this work, you'll find your sensitivity naturally increases. The teaching Jesus shared about birds and archons is ultimately about remembering your true nature. You're not meant to live blind to the energetic realities that shape experience. You're not supposed to be easy prey for parasitic forces. You have within you the same ability that birds demonstrate effortlessly, the capacity to sense frequency and navigate reality accordingly. Reclaiming this ability is part of waking up to who you really are beyond the limiting stories you've been told. This ancient wisdom has been rediscovered and confirmed by modern researchers in unexpected ways. Scientists studying bird migration patterns have found anomalies they can't fully explain through conventional means. Birds navigate using magnetic fields, yes, but their sensitivity goes beyond what the Earth's magnetic field alone can account for. They're picking up on something else, something energetic that exists in the spaces between what our instruments can measure. The precision of their navigation suggests they're reading frequencies we haven't yet developed the technology to detect. The implications of this teaching ripple far beyond ornithology. If birds are responding to archonic frequency drops, then the entire animal kingdom likely operates with similar sensitivity. Consider how horses refuse to enter certain buildings for no apparent physical reason, how dogs act strangely around specific individuals who seem perfectly normal to humans, how livestock become agitated in areas that later become sites of tragedy or disease. The natural world maintains a constant dialogue with dimensions of reality we've largely stopped perceiving. Understanding this opens your awareness to a larger conversation happening all around you constantly. Nature is always communicating, always providing feedback about the energetic state of situations and places. We simply forgot how to listen. The birds are like a living early warning system if only we pay attention. They're showing us which spaces are healthy and which are contaminated with low-frequency influence. This isn't mystical thinking. It's reading the data that nature continuously provides. Jesus emphasized that developing this sensitivity requires patience and consistency. You can't read frequency for a few minutes once a week and expect real results. The practice needs to become part of your daily rhythm. Spend time in nature with genuine presence, not as exercise or obligation, but as a practice of reconnection. Sit quietly and simply feel what the environment is communicating. Notice how your body responds to different spaces. Over time, your nervous system recalibrates and becomes increasingly attuned to subtle energetic shifts. The protection that comes from understanding this teaching is profound. When you know that Archons feed on low-frequency states, you naturally become more careful about what you expose yourself to. You start questioning why you feel drawn to certain content, certain conversations, certain social situations. Are these genuinely serving your growth, or are they subtly feeding parasitic frequencies? This awareness creates natural boundaries without requiring willpower or restriction. You simply don't want to participate in things that lower your frequency anymore. Many spiritual practitioners throughout history have used birds as teachers for exactly this reason. Indigenous traditions across the globe incorporate bird observation into their spiritual practices. They understood that birds operate from a place of pure instinct connected to invisible realities. By studying birds, by learning their behaviors and patterns, humans could access wisdom about navigating worlds visible and invisible. This wasn't superstition. It was sophisticated observation of natural intelligence applied practically to spiritual development. The teaching also helps explain why certain spiritual practices have been deliberately suppressed. The Catholic Church, for instance, had protocols for identifying and silencing individuals who demonstrated unusual sensitivity to non-physical realities. Someone who could read frequency, who could sense archonic influence, who could maintain high vibration despite being surrounded by corruption. Such a person represented a threat to systems of control. Keeping populations ignorant of these abilities meant keeping them vulnerable to manipulation. This historical suppression makes reclaiming this knowledge particularly important now. We're living in an age where frequency manipulation happens constantly through technology, through media, through food systems designed to keep humanity in a state of fear and confusion. The archonic influence that concerned Jesus operates far more effectively in the modern world than it did in his time. More tools, more methods, more pathways to feed off human consciousness. Understanding the mechanics of frequency and learning to protect yourself becomes essential survival knowledge. The practice of paying attention to birds also serves as an anchor that keeps you connected to present moment awareness. When you're truly observing a bird, noticing its movements and behaviors, you're in the here and now. You're not caught in past regrets or future anxieties. This state of present awareness is actually the highest frequency state humans can achieve. It's the state where true power resides, where intuition flows naturally, where you're most resistant to archonic manipulation. Birds teach us this through their constant embodiment of presence. Jesus taught that one of the primary ways Archons maintain control is by keeping human consciousness fragmented across past and future. When you're mentally reliving what happened yesterday or worrying about tomorrow, you're not present to the frequency information available right now. You become susceptible to manipulation because you're not actually here. The birds never make this mistake. They're always fully present, always reading their environment, always responsive. Learning from their example is learning how to escape a primary method of control. As you develop this sensitivity, you might notice something unexpected. The more you raise your own frequency through genuine spiritual practice, the more you become aware of archonic presence around you. This might seem like things are getting worse, but it's actually clarity increasing. You're not becoming more contaminated, you're becoming more sensitive. It's like turning up the contrast on an image. The darkness becomes more visible, but so does the light. This can feel disorienting initially, but it's a sign that your perception is genuinely expanding. The solution isn't to become afraid or paranoid about archonic influence. The solution is to become so committed to raising your own frequency that the presence of low-frequency entities barely registers as an obstacle. When you're vibrating at the frequency of genuine love, peace, and truth, low-frequency forces simply can't touch you. They can't feed from you. They can't control you. You become like those places where birds gather freely and sing openly. Your presence itself becomes a sanctuary. This is perhaps the most liberating aspect of the teaching. You don't need to fight Archons, you don't need to banish them or perform rituals against them. You simply need to raise your frequency above the range where they can operate. It's like how bacteria can't survive at certain temperatures. You don't battle the bacteria when you heat water to boiling. The environment itself becomes hostile to its existence. Your elevated frequency works the same way. Maintain it consistently, and parasitic forces have no foothold. The daily practices that raise frequency are often deceptively simple. Genuine gratitude, even for small things, raises frequency immediately. Acts of authentic kindness shift your vibration upward. Time spent in natural settings away from artificial stimuli and frequency pollution recalibrates your system. Creative expression moves energy and raises vibration. Honest self-reflection that leads to genuine change elevates your state. None of these require special knowledge or elaborate rituals. They're accessible to everyone right now. Jesus summarized this teaching with the guidance to be like birds in your awareness. Notice everything. Trust your instincts. Don't stay in environments that feel wrong even if you can't explain why. Move toward places and people that feel alive and aligned. Maintain your sensitivity to the world around you rather than numbing yourself. Respond to what you perceive rather than getting stuck in analysis. Birds do this perfectly. They are the living demonstration of the spiritual principles he was teaching. The bird teaching connects directly to the fundamental message of his entire ministry. He came to show people how to escape systems of control, how to liberate themselves from parasitic forces that feed on human consciousness. Most people interpreted this as a purely religious message about salvation in an afterlife, but he was offering something far more practical and immediate. He was offering freedom now, available to anyone willing to do the work of raising their frequency and learning to read reality as it actually is. Recognizing the signs of archonic influence in your daily life becomes easier with practice. Notice the people who leave you feeling drained even though they seemed friendly. Notice the places that make you feel heavy despite being physically comfortable. Notice the content that compels you toward fear and confusion. Notice the systems that require you to compromise your integrity to participate. These are all signs of low-frequency influence. Once you see them clearly, you can choose differently. The beauty of this teaching is that it empowers you completely. You're not waiting for rescue. You're not dependent on institutions or authorities. You're not helpless in the face of unseen forces. You have everything you need right now to start reading frequency, to start raising your own vibration, to start living free from parasitic influence. The birds have been demonstrating this freedom all along. They don't wait for permission. They don't ask for authority. They simply read their environment and act accordingly. Moving forward with this knowledge transforms your relationship with reality itself. You stop being a passive victim of circumstances and become an active participant in your own consciousness. You start making choices based on genuine intuition rather than fear or conditioning. You begin to align with your true nature, which is far more capable and aware than you've been told. This is the real message of Jesus' teaching about birds and archons. It's about remembering who you are and reclaiming your power. Now, thank you so much for watching this entire exploration. I know deep material like this requires real time and attention, and I genuinely appreciate that you invested both. If this teaching resonates with you, if something in it sparked recognition or curiosity, please hit that subscribe button. We explore these hidden teachings regularly here, bringing ancient wisdom into conversation with modern understanding. Subscribe so you don't miss the next exploration that might shift your perspective entirely.